Hey everyone, Reaper here again with another video. Last week I released my top 15 purchases of 2018. Now 2018 was a really good year for me collecting comics and everything else. It was really my best year and it's probably something that's not going to be replicated, but anyway, I purchased what I thought were a lot of nice books beyond the top 15. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time going over, showing some of the other books, almost like a recap of this year, of the other books that did not make it to the top 15. Now, this is not every single book that I purchased throughout the year, just, a nice chunk of books that really didn't share any time with the top 15, did not make it to the top 15. So it'd still be cool to show them off anyway because they're cool or because they're meaningful and all that. So let's get started. I'm going to start off with some pre-code horror because I know how much everyone loves pre-code horror over superheroes. So you're going to be seeing a lot of those in this video. This is the second issue of Walter Horror. Excuse me for a little bit of the glare. This is the second issue of the Walter Horror, number 13. As I mentioned in other videos and as people have commented, the numbering system for EC and quite frankly a few other titles of that era and afterwards is a little screwy. Originally, let's show it again. Originally the Vault of Horror, or the title that would become the Vault of Horror, was War Against Crime. And if you watched my top 15, you know War Against Crime 10, which is the first appearance of the Vault Keeper, was number 6 on that list. So with number 12, the title was officially renamed The Vault of Horror. And this is number 13, which is technically the second issue of The Vault of Horror. One of my favorite covers in that series. Johnny Craig, he did every Vault of Horror cover, I believe, and he was a master at his work. Another pre-code, but this time we jump to the Haunt of Fear with Graham Ingalls. This is Haunt of Fear number 22. I had this book for a while. I recently, not necessarily this particular copy, but this issue, I recently upgraded it within the last 6 months. Upgraded it to this copy, which I was very happy I was able to do. Great book. Wish You Were Here is in this as a story featured in this issue. Wish You Were Here, for those of you that are real Tales from the Crypt fans, know that was one of the probably one of the best segments of the Tales from the Crypt 1972 movie. Moving along, now we're back to superheroes, so everyone can rejoice. Showcase 79. This is a really cool cover. It's a really cool cover. It's just it really does stand out, and that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to get this book sometime this year, and I obviously eventually did. So I was really happy about that. This is a book I've wanted for a little while because of, once again, the cover. I've become quite the cover collector, following in the footsteps of Dr. Von Schilla, who's probably the king of cover collectors. Blazer Alert, as he would say. X-Men 17. Look at the reds on this book, and it's a pretty... it's a nice grade, too. It's not a low-grade copy. I was fortunate enough to purchase this off of Instagram, and I was very happy I did so. I've been looking, like I said, I've been looking for a 17 for a while, a nice-looking 17, and I found it with this issue, with this particular book. All right, here we go, back to pre-code. Sorry. This book right here, Tales from the Crypt, number 32, infamous, elephant about to squash the lady's head cover. I purchased this at the New York Comic Con, and one of the main reasons why I went after this particular issue is, the cover's cool, but it's not necessarily one of the covers that pops to me as other covers pop. One of the main reasons why I went after this particular issue is because cutting cards is in this. Cutting Cards was the second season, was on the second season of the HBO series back in 1990. And really it was Cutting Cards that really made me look for Tales from the Crypt comics. You know, I was like, wow, this is really cool. I wanted to see if I could actually find the comic that had that particular story way back when. And after many, 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 many years, I was able to finally get it. So, really, really cool. Look out, here comes the last issue of Tales from the Crypt. It's supposedly a scarcer issue. You know, not too many of them were released. You know, when you open the book up, I did an inside look of this book for my Blind Alleys video, because Blind Alleys was another story that was taken for the Tales from the Crypt movie from the original Tales from the Crypt movie in 1972. So I showed that story in particular. I think it's the first. I forget, but I believe it's the very first story in this book. But yeah, supposedly a scarce issue. When you open it up, you read the inside cover, the in memoriam, how the editors of Tales from the Crypt, you know, they finally gave up because of all the problems that were going on with the government coming after them and, you know, saying that they're corrupting the children of America with these books and crime books and all that stuff, which was hardly true. But yeah, pretty cool book. The very first Tales from the Crypt issue I ever read, in reprint form, when I went to go looking for the issue that had Cutting Cards in the summer of 1990, Gladstone was reprinting these, and number 3 just came out, and it was this book right here. Cover story was also on the HBO TV series 3rd season, Undertaking Pallor. Great story, great book. This was definitely a book that needed to be in my collection. It's very, very important. Here it is. All right. Tales from the Crypt number 35, classic werewolf Jack Davis cover, or Jack Davis werewolf cover. Also in the Vault of Horror movie, which came out in 1973, which serves as a sequel to the Tales from the Crypt movie that came out the year before. Midnight Mess. Love that. Beautifully drawn by Joe Orlando. The movie literally took panel for panel and translated it scene to scene in that particular adaptation. Of course, there are liberties, as there are often liberties whenever you take a book or a comic and you translate it to TV or film or whatever, but it still turned out to be really, really good. Alright. Tales from the Crypt number 21. This is actually, technically, the second issue of Tales from the Crypt. The title, I believe, was originally International Comics for the first few issues. Then I believe it turned to Crime Patrol. I don't know if it turned to anything else before Crime Patrol, but then I think it became Crime Patrol. Correct me if I'm wrong for any EC fan addicts out there. Became Crime Patrol, then it became Cryptid Terror with number 17, and then with issue 20, the title changed to Tales from the Crypt, and it was Tales from the Crypt till the very end. Shocking Way to Die cover story. I love Al Feldstein. I think he draws very well. Even though as much as I like Graham Ingalls, I would say that my top 3 favorite EC artists, and there were plenty of them, plenty of good ones during that era, probably Graham Ingalls, Johnny Craig, and Al Feldstein. They all had very distinct styles, and it all works very well, and really, really enjoyed Al Feldstein's work in these early issues. I should check out some of his Weird Fantasy stuff, because look, he did a lot of great covers for that series too. But one day we'll get into Weird Fantasy. All right. This is a book I had for many, many years, but then I sold it off, and I said to myself I could easily get that book again, and I did. And I decided to get it at the New York Comic Con for what I thought was a pretty good price, Amazing Spider-Man number 361. This was one of the first batches of comics that I got, the original one I had back in 1993. So, yeah, I was glad to be able to bring this back into my collection. I assume all of you out there, I'm showing these books and I'm saying this issue and that issue. I assume you know what these issues are, right? That was the first full appearance of Carnage and so forth and so on. Here's a book that I was enamored with, at least with the cover of this book, for ever since I started collecting back in 1993. And I was able to get this one. Amazing Spider-Man number 11. This is the second appearance of Dr. Octopus. Now, in my top 15 video, I forget what number it was, but Amazing Spider-Man number 3, the first appearance of Dr. Octopus, it made that list because it was a very important book. And it was an upgrade. I had that book for many, many years, and I finally upgraded it to a better-looking copy, which is still low grade. But yeah, this came from the same collection that I got my Amazing Spider-Man number 6. And, yeah, it's a great book. Great book. Love the cover. Some may say that this cover is better than the Amazing 3. I disagree. I like the Amazing 3 cover better, but they're both great covers. So, to each his own. Last few. Detective Comics number 400. Neal Adams cover. This was another book that I had. This is probably an 8.0. I don't think it's an 8.5, but it's at least an 8.0. I had a 9.0 copy that I sold off to help pay for to help me get the Incredible Hulk number 1, and I never regretted it. And it was once again like with the Amazing Spider-Man 361. I said, I could probably get that book again sometime soon. I don't need a 9.0 or anything higher. It'd be nice, but I'd be very happy with an 8.0, nothing lower. And at where did I get this? I got this at the Heroes Con. Yeah, how could I forget? And down in Charlotte when I was hanging out with Patrick and Mike. It was a really, really fun time hanging out with those guys, Patrick and Mike and so forth. Yeah, I bought this from Ted, Superworld. And, yeah, it was good. Me, very, very happy. Very happy with the purchase and very happy to add it to my collection again. Last two. Now this one here also comes. This one comes from the New York Comic Con this year. Conan the Barbarian number 1. It's the first appearance of Conan in comics. Remember, Conan originally showed up in pulp back in the 30s and came into the comics in 1970 here with this awesome cover by Barry Windsor Smith. Very, very cool. This is 5.0. It looks better than a 5.0, but I don't need an 8.0 or a 9.0 to enjoy this book. And that's why I went for it at the New York Con for what I thought was a pretty decent price. And the last book for my, other top purchases of 2018, right here. This probably, this was probably number 16. Okay? Crime Suspense Stories number 17. The infamous suicide cover. The horror books, like Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, Haunt of Fear, and so forth, they get a lot of problems when it comes to that whole mess that was going on in the 50s, the juvenile delinquency and so forth. There were these horror stories with the cause of juvenile delinquencies, and those covers, there were some controversial covers, and some of them, were edited. Or censored, rather. But I don't think when it comes to, in the same family, EC, that anything matched when it comes to controversy than the crime covers. I mean, they had some really wicked covers that I think are more controversial than any of the horror covers. Like this one right here. The guy's blowing his brains out. When you look at it, you think that, well, it's a crime story. Maybe somebody's breaking into the house and shooting him. But then when you look in the mirror over here, you see that he's actually holding the gun. And there are so many of these. The infamous decapitation cover, which I think probably brought down EC, number 22. Then there was the hanging cover, which is kind of raw. The Woman in Peril cover. And all these other, a lot of men choking women covers, they all were in crime. And the covers are really memorable, and which makes the books very expensive to get. I had purchased this one from Dr. Von Chilla, and super happy to add this into my collection. And you know, we all have our seals, and you know, you see on the back here you have John's seal, but of course I put mine just above it. Of course, he came first, and I'll always keep this board. But crime, suspense stories, like I said, this probably, if I did a top 20 purchases of 2018, this probably would have been number 16. You know, you saw the top 15, this would probably be number 16. But that's my video. I just wanted to give these books some extra credit because they really are, you know, it's not just about the top 15 or the top 10 or the top 5 or the top 3. It's, you know, there are books that are made differently than others, of course. There are books that are more important than others. But, you know, it doesn't mean that other purchases throughout the year are not as good. These are some great purchases, some great books that I'm sure a lot of people would love to have in their collection. Thank you for watching, everybody. Take care.